It's oh, hello, Annabelle.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hear you. It's so good to see you.
So nice to see you. Can you see the boxes behind me?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Just a few, but
I'm moving, and this is literally the best spot in my house that I could find that has the fewest boxes. So
that is hilarious. Now, you live in New York, right?
I live in New York. Yeah.
Okay, what part of New York?
I live in Rye, New York, which is Westchester. It's like
Okay.
35 minutes outside the city.
I was there on Friday.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
And
We
I'm
were-
taking my family next week to go to the city. Crazy.
Oh, okay. It's kind of hot here.
I have heard.
Although
Yeah,
you're in
well,
Texas.
we missed the heat wave because I think today was supposed to be 90 on Cape Cod. So I'm glad we got out when we did, but we actually drove. So we went over the Tappan Zee Bridge and I just love that area. It's so pretty.
Oh, it's so pretty. It really is. I'm moving 10 minutes away to Connecticut. It's like not much of a move, but you still have to pick up everything you own and move
Yeah.
it.
Yes,
Not
unfortunately.
easy. Not easy. Okay, let's see here. We've got several people joining, or lots of people joining in. We have usually a very large number. A lot of people will wait because I know we do spoilers, so they'll wait till they read the book and then they get to watch it later.
I
Okay.
think we had about almost 200 people signed up for this one.
Unbelievable.
Yes, we have.
And then where do you watch it later? Is it on your website or on?
We will send an email to all the attendees that will have the recorded version, and then eventually we put it on YouTube.
Okay. Oh, that's so great. God,
Oh.
thank you for doing this for me. This is amazing.
Oh,
Well, we've wanted to have you for a long time. You're very fabled. You're perfect for the fabled customer, in my opinion.
I've been just sitting here this whole time, you guys. I could have done this years ago.
We need to get you not in the summer though. We need to get you more of like better weather for us. So
I was in Dallas.
Okay.
And it was 105 degrees and people were outdoors at 2 p.m. playing pickleball.
Yeah.
It's funny how your body kind of gets used to it, but
I couldn't
I wonder if it's kind of like, cooking a frog where we're like, not really, we're used to it, but it's not good for us.
Yeah.
So
I have heard half of my family's from New England. They all kind of laugh at how we can't handle ice, and snow down here. I'm like, well, let's talk about the summertime.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
They're true.
Yeah.
Well, fun. We'll be in the chat. I've asked everyone if they want to put where they're from, and we have all over the US, which is so fun. I love it. I think even the first person who commented was Melissa, who is on Cape Cod right now.
Oh, what part of
it is super hot, sadly.
I know. Well, it was great when I was there, and I think I left and it just fell apart, which makes me think I need to go back and save the day.
It fell apart after you left. I mean,
sorry, Cape Cod.
I see my friend Sarah Peanut there.
Oh,
yeah.
Melissa, I have been going to Harwich since I was a little girl. So I was in Harwich just last week.
It's so beautiful there.
I know, we love it. Yeah.
Well, since it's 7 and Annabelle is already here, I'll go ahead and start us. Welcome to Fabled Bookshop's book club. Let's start over. Welcome to Fabled's book club. We're so happy to have you. We have so much fun here, and we've had the bonus of this month having 2 authors, and it's fun because they're like entirely different types of books. And we got to interview Chris Whittaker last week during the lunch hour for a very dark book. And so it's nice to come into the light today and have Annabelle here with us for summer romance. If you haven't been here before, we are discussing spoilers. So if you have not read the book, you can close out of Zoom and we will send you a recording of this about 24 hours from now. You can expect to receive an email. We'll have a link to this recording. You can watch it. We will be asking Annabelle questions. If you have a question for her, you can write it in the chat or you can put it in the Q&A. We'll do our best to get to it in our time here. And at the end, stick around because we'll be announcing our next book club for next month. So I think everybody has their hard pants on.
All right.
I quote the book.
I
will have
too hot everywhere for hard pants.
I know, maybe hard shorts. We'll
I
just,
have hard shorts on right now.
yeah.
No, I'm in the gigantic dress.
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
nice.
The airflow.
the way to go, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
dresses in the summer are very underrated, but they
Yes.
provide amazing ventilation.
This is
Yes.
true. I will let Elizabeth introduce Annabelle with her bio.
All right, so we're so excited tonight to have Annabel Monaghan. She is the author of Library Reads Pick and national bestseller Same Time Next Summer, and Indie Next and Library Reads Pick Nora Goes Off Script, as well as 2 young adult novels and Does This Volvo Make My Butt Look Big? A selection of laugh out loud columns that appeared in the Huffington Post, The Week, and the Rye Record. She lives in Rye, New York with her family. And I have to say, Annabelle, I've been a huge fan since the jump. I messaged you last year that I don't read romance books. I'm more of a serial killer or, literary fiction type of person, but there's something about your books. Actually, I read Nora Goes Off Script on Cape Cod a couple of years ago, and I still think about it. It was just fantastic. So I love that. And you told me, well, I don't read a whole lot of romance. So maybe there's something about that we just kind of connect. But I do love your books. And I found out today that you are Putnam's fastest growing bestseller, and your sales are up 200% nationally.
I did not know that. Who gave you this information?
It was on
My
Edelweiss.
accountant know what is this information?
Yes, it sounds like good fodder for a raise, maybe. But
I was just gonna say, use that to your advantage for sure.
yes,
Wow,
but
that's
again,
amazing.
yeah, and I have again just been hoping that we could get you with Fabled Book Club for several years. So this is a dream come true for us, and we're just thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just love the connection between, you said serial killers and literary fiction.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you're either going to go like up here or you're going to go with the knife.
Yeah. Well, it's all just fun, fun,
I
but
love it.
every now and then a smattering of summer romance and second chance romance. It's good for like a palate cleanser.
Yep. Fine
So
with
can
me.
you just kind of remind, again, this is book club. This is not, we really like to have a little bit of time for people to read the book first. But can you kind of give everyone just a brief reminder of the plot of your wonderful book?
Yes. So Allie Morris is a professional organizer whose life and home are both a total mess. She is majorly stuck. She's the mother of 3. She's recently separated and she's grieving the loss of her mother. And she makes tiny little moves to get unstuck. She takes off her wedding ring. She puts on a pair of hard pants. She leaves the house. And she thinks she's going to get unstuck, maybe by having a summer romance with this absolutely adorable guy that she meets at the dog park. And throughout the novel, she sort of rethinks or kind of marinates in the mourning of her mother. She comes to terms with the relationship that she had with her mother and sort of what her mother's role may have been in the breakup of her marriage. She sort of rethinks her whole life and really, essentially, she gets unstuck. It's a book about getting unstuck by doing small things.
Yeah.
Well, Elizabeth mentioned the second chance stories, which you're known so well by. Tell us how you got the idea for this book.
Well, the idea for this book really came while I was writing this book. I wanted to write a different book. And the book I wanted to write is a little bit in this book. My idea for this book is I wanted to write a book about Instagram. I wanted to write a book about how different our external lives are from our internal lives. Basically, like being a professional organizer whose house is a mess. And I wanted to kind of write a book about the situation that women find themselves in, where we have so many people that we need to take care of. And we work so hard and we totally exhaust ourselves. And then our society wants to sell us a bunch of stuff that's going to make us relax. We can spend our hard-earned money relaxing. I wanted to write that book. And as I started writing that book, I saw that it was actually not, that her stuckness was not coming from the outside. It was coming from the inside. So it totally changed into a book about her making different choices and taking ownership for all the choices she has made in the past and moving forward. It's not totally logical the way I write a book, so you really never know what you're going to get when you start, or when I start.
We'll be asking you a little bit more about your writing process in a little bit. So that'll be interesting. Okay, I wanted to talk to you about romance. So I actually met with my source book publisher yesterday, and he told me they have more #1 books on the New York Times bestseller than any other publisher, and it's because of all their romance writers. And I mean, romance is really, really having a moment.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Why do you think that is, and why do you think that maybe they're not getting the accolades that they deserve? I don't think there were many romances on the New York Times top 100. But what do you think about that?
I think it's really changing, frankly. I mean, I think if you look at the New York Times list, it's all Emily Henry and Carly Fortune and Abby Jimenez. And it says something about us.
And Annabel Monaghan.
Yeah, I'm on another list. But it says something about us, I think, that, first of all, the moment in time where we all really want a happy ending. I mean, starting in COVID, the world is really stressful. And we want to go to a place where we can connect with ourselves and connect with something good and just feel better. I know personally that I do not want to read a terrifying book about children getting kidnapped right now. Like, it just isn't sort of my makeup. So I think there's that. And I think it's funny. I was at an event recently, and this man raised his hand, and he said, at the end, he said, "You seem smart. Why do you write romance?" And, I understand the question. Like, I understand that way of thinking. First of all, it's hard to write a book. Full stop.
Right.
But it's, romance appeals to people on like as an entertainment, but also as like, anthropologically, we all need to connect with each other. It's like all the things that we're trying to do in the world is because we're trying to find love and connect with each other. And in that process of falling in love, you hopefully learn so much about yourself that there's growth. So I think it's entertainment, but I think it also makes you feel a little bit of your own potential. So I think it's a very hopeful genre. I hope it keeps on.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read much of Catherine Center, but she had just an incredible author's note about the importance of romance. And just when you buy a romance or a rom-com, you know what you're going to get, that known quantity. And it's not something just not a small thing. So I would recommend reading that. I think that would make.
Do you remember which book it is?
It's actually her last one. I mean, she's talked about it in her store before, but there's an author's note in the rom-commers.
Okay,
so I
enjoy
reading.
I think it's in one of those boxes behind me.
You'll get to it.
Yeah, I will. I really believe that. I think we're giving certainty, and it's a sense of well-being along the way.
Yeah, definitely. Well, another question about the popularity of romances. I think in the shop, when someone says to us, like, I want to read a romance, our first question usually is, do you want open door or closed door romance? And for you as a closed door writer, which to me I find refreshing because I can just recommend it to everyone and not be like, oh, I shouldn't have told my mom, whoever. Is that a decision you made early on when you were writing?
No, it's just who I am. The first draft of Nora Goes Off Script, my editor read it. She said, "Do they even have sex?" I said, "Of course they do. There's that, remember where they shut the door?" And she was like, "No." And so I tried really hard, and I gave like a paragraph of two of intimacy in a closed door way that feels sort of good to me. And I just don't, I think it's a way of approaching things. It's not like, oh, I'm trying to write that kind of book. It's just how I tell a story. Because a spicier story, I read it and I think, I actually don't think I could have typed that out. Like, if you gave it to me to transcribe, I couldn't have written it. So it's not, and there's a reader for both kinds of books. what I've loved so much in this third book, Summer Romance, I love that I have a bit of a readership, and people show up at my book events with their mom,
Mhm.
and they tell me that they're reading it together. And it is kind of nice to be able to share something like that.
I love it. And I appreciate it. If I'm going to read a romance, your brand is exactly what I want. And again, my daughter loves to read romance, and those are the books I feel comfortable handing to her as a
Yeah.
20-year-old. In this book, in the author's note, you talk about this being your most personal book yet. Can you go into a little more detail about that? I know there's with your mother passed away. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that? And was it cathartic to write about that?
Yeah, and I had no intention of writing about that. And like page 4 of writing this book, I realized that her mother had passed away, and I sort of felt the absence of her mother in her life. I tend to get in my car when I'm having a hard time and talk out loud to my mother. I do it all the time. And I gave Allie this habit of doing that. And it sort of, it was fun writing because, first of all, it made me feel like I was less crazy for talking to my dead mother in the car. But I think there's a processing that we do when we lose the people that are really close to us, where at first we miss them. And then after a while, we think about our relationship and we think about what it was. Maybe there's forgiveness that comes. I went through that whole process, and I found it really beautiful. So this book it's basically, in its biggest sense, it's a love letter to my mom. And so that's why it feels very personal to me. Also, my house is kind of a mess. So it's it's funny to think about writing a character who's a professional organizer, because I'm totally disorganized. And there are a million inside jokes with my husband in this book. He read it. He's like, you would never know how to do something like that. I'm like, I know. Our pantry is a mess.
That is really funny. That was actually gonna be my next question, because I loved reading the organizing questions. And I was like, I need to think about this when I'm cleaning out my closet. Some of these questions are really great.
Yeah.
But I actually want to use one of our attendees' questions. And Nisa asked, which character changed the most from the first draft to the final draft, and why?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say Ethan. He was at the very beginning. I wanted her to fall in love with her divorce attorney, and he was a guy in a blue suit with a briefcase, and I was so bored. I was like, I don't want to write this book. I don't want to kiss this guy. And so then I turned him into a skateboarder. And for a while, he was so outlandish, like showing up in costumes, places. He was like way too far the other way. And my editor assured me that no one would want to kiss this man. And so after a while, I believed her, and I brought him back. He took the most work to figure out who he was and really what he was like.
So in this book, you show the influence of older people on Allie's life, including her mother and Phyllis, and even the friendship with Ethan and his neighbor. Can you talk about your thoughts on these intergenerational friendships, which I loved?
Oh, I love that question because it's my favorite thing. I have actually benefited the most in my life from my friendships with older people and younger people. Because friendships with younger people make you feel like you've made some progress, and they sort of show you where you've come from. And with older people, it gives you so much perspective on all the things that you think are too big of a deal. And her relationship with Phyllis was so important to me because Phyllis was sort of the counterbalance to her mother. Just it'll be fine. You're fine just the way you are. Everything's just out. I don't need to micromanage you. You don't need to work so hard. I loved having Phyllis's end of life sort of perspective on on Allie, when she was just so like wound up and unhappy. Those have been some of the most important relationships I've had.
Love it.
Well, let's talk about dogs, because
Let's.
the Meet Cute was in a dog park.
I'm
and
shocked that my dog's not here causing a ruckus.
I would have totally been appropriate too.
Yeah, and he'll be
I think there was in the book about mentioning when you get a dog, it's acknowledging that you'll have this friendship relationship with it and you will outlive them.
Yeah.
How does the presence of dogs in this book give it greater meaning?
Well, it's funny. That was kind of an accident. That's like the happiest accident that happens when you're writing a book is when you're writing two things that have nothing to do with each other, and then you realize that they're the exact same thing. Having a summer romance is really a crazy thing to do because you know that it's going to be over on Labor Day. Like it's got a finite ending. But you do it anyways, because I mean, those are some of the best romances of my life. Like it's just such fun. And getting a dog, it worse. I mean, you buy a dog and you know that in 15 years, you're gonna have the worst day of your life, but you do it anyways because it's worth it. And then I realized, she's befriended her elderly neighbor. Making friends with a 94-year-old woman is the same exact thing. And so it's just all about like embracing that joy that we have right now. And you're going to lose it and you're going to be able to handle your grief. And the biggest thing in this book is that love doesn't really leave you. The love that you sow kind of sticks around and stays close.
Do you have anyone that has told you that they got a dog after they read this book?
No, but God, I remember people after I wrote Nora Goes Off Script kept Instagram messaging me, telling me they were divorcing their husbands.
Oh,
and I'm like, Leo's not coming. Like, don't do that. No, I don't think I've heard anybody getting a dog, although that does seem like a tamer thing to do.
yeah, that's much tamer than
Yeah. I don't want to take responsibility for anybody's divorce.
Good grief, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, so you've written 3 just utterly fantastic romances. Do you love writing in that genre? Do you ever envision yourself writing anything other than the summer blockbuster that you're doing right now?
I'm not committed to the summer. I really I like falling in love in the fall. I like falling in love in the winter. The thing that I don't know how I'll ever get away from is romance in general. I tried, the book I was trying to write before Nora Goes Off Script was a murder mystery. And, the dead body washes up and they lock eyes, the cop and the woman, and it's all of a sudden a romance. Like I have a really hard time not writing a romance. And I do, like you, I do like to read, like I love Lisa Jewell and Ruth Ware and all those. I don't have that DNA. And I think it's really important for writers to know what kind of writer they are. I really like to write something light and I like to sort of like elevate the mood and maybe make something funny. And I have a really hard time lowering the sky and bringing in a guy with a dagger. So yeah, I think it's always going to be a love story.
Well, and do you, even in this last book, it was a love story, but there was also, I feel like there was just a myriad of emotions in this book. How do you balance that out, the grief and the rom-com? It worked so well in summer romance, and I just wonder if you thought about that.
Well, thank you. No, I actually didn't think about it, but I'll tell you what it is. My mother passed away 15 years ago, so it's a long time ago. I couldn't have written this book 15 years ago and brought that element into it. It would have been a sad book, and I actually probably just wouldn't have written it. So I had enough distance that the grief stuff could be light touch. And her husband leaving her, he's the worst. Like
Yeah.
there's no worse guy than this guy. So I didn't really feel sad about him leaving, and we were moving quickly into a happy thing. And I do think that, the flip side of humor is sadness and a little bit of darkness. So you can pepper a little bit in. But I didn't feel like it got out of balance while I was writing. Like I always felt what's going to come on the page is how I'm feeling while I'm typing. And I always felt reasonably fine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I love it.
A little crazy.
We have such good questions from everybody in the chat. One of them has to do with the children in the book. And my business partner, Kimberly, she is actually in England right now, but I asked her, I was like, do you have a question for Annabelle? She's like, yes, I love how she writes children and their personalities. And how do you decide how to integrate those personalities into the book? Do you base it on your own kids? Do you
No.
know kids?
That's like rule number one. Rule number one is none of my children's names, none of their hobbies. Like all my kids play basketball. You will never see a basketball player in a book. First of all, not that they're going to read my books, but no, but I've been a mom for 26 years. And so, and frankly, a stay-at-home mom for almost all of that time. I've been around a lot of kids. And I have an ear for how they talk and how they don't talk. So that comes kind of naturally to me. And I like in a romance, these Nora and Summer romance, I like having the children around because it actually adds a little bit of an obstacle about them being together.
Yes.
And there's like that little bit of longing and that little bit of difficulty and a little bit of sneaking around, which makes everything so much more exciting. And there's also something about children where you can't help but love them. So it's not like you decide whether or not you're going to engage with their needs. Children are so immediate. So I'd love including them.
Do you have, this is from Vicky in the chat, do you have a possible movie or TV options for this book or any others?
Not this book. There's something happening with Same Time Next Summer, but it's weird. I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
I'll just say a thing about Hollywood. The first time one of my young adult novels was optioned by Disney, and I honestly got off the phone and I was Googling real estate in Beverly Hills. Like, I thought, like, this is it, man. Nothing ever happened. Then they bought the option again. Nothing ever happened. So I don't know what's happening with Same Time Next Summer, but Nora Goes Off Script has been optioned, and they're very close to doing a thing. There's a script and there's an actor who's interested in playing Leo. That's starting to have like a little bit of a heartbeat, like that could happen.
I feel like it has to be a Hallmark movie.
I know. There's something so funny about, Hallmark did try to buy Nora Goes Off Script. There's something funny about it because I'm kind of busting on Hallmark.
Yeah.
It seems a little circular. It might have been fun. That
would have been fun. Yeah. And I loved Same Time Next Summer. I loved the idea of going back to, it was Long Island, correct? My mother grew up in Long Island, and that was a book where a lot of times after I read a book like Nora Goes Off Script, I'm so worried that the next book is going to be a disappointment. And it was even, somehow even better. And you keep elevating for sure.
That's a totally terrifying concept. I think
no pressure at all.
And I'm writing my next summer's book right now, or I'm finishing it. And if I take a break and I see that somebody liked summer romance, my first thought is, oh God, they're going to hate this one. Like, just you're always worried about that.
I can totally understand that, but
hoping it all works out.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book? Can we know what to expect a little bit from the book from next summer?
I've got 80,000 words written, and it won't be longer than that. So most of those words are going to stay. It's just not quite there yet. But it is about a child star who is all grown up, and she's trying to make it in Hollywood. She wants to get taken seriously as an adult in Hollywood. So that's her goal. And then she meets this guy, and he is a photographer, and he's adorable. And they go on a bit of a quest together because they need to locate a pop star for a project that she wants to work on. Wow, that's the longest pitch I've ever given for that.
Yay, well, you got to get lots of practice in.
Yeah. Oh God, I've had a year to practice. This time last year, I was like, so Allie, she's divorced. And some stuff happens. That was all I could conceive of.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your writing process? We've had several questions about that. We'd love to hear how you write things, how early do you get your ideas, how it all fleshes out?
Yeah, so I'm open to suggestions. At any moment, I think my editor is going to join the chat and say, yeah, let's come up with a new process. I have an idea. I start with an idea. And from that idea, it's usually like she's a professional organizer and her life's a mess. She's a Hallmark Channel writer and she's never really been in love, like that kind of thing. And I just start writing and I don't really write with a plan. Certainly she's going to meet a guy. Certainly something terrible is going to happen. And certainly it's going to have a happy ending. But really don't know anything else. And so I just start writing and I write very quickly and very poorly until I get to the end of a draft. And then hopefully by the end of the first draft, I have an idea of who that person is. Because just because a person has a job, you really don't know what kind of a person they are, or how they talk, or what their wound is. Like that's once I found the wound, then I can write the rest of the story. But I write a book a lot of times. And I show it very early to my editor, who is a saint. And she will give me a compliment sandwich. Oh,
Yep.
you're such a nice person. This doesn't make any sense. That'll go on for a really long time. And then she'll tell me I'm pretty at the end or something.
Do you receive, I would wonder how, like, for instance, we talked to Chris Whitaker and he talked about how he spends a year writing dialogue and he knows who these people are in and out. Do you, if they suggest a change of a character, or are you one that's like, no, you can't change this about this person? Or do you be like, or do you think like you're more flexible with who they are?
Yeah, almost never. For a couple of reasons. My editor is smarter than I am. She's like, she really is like the missing part of my brain. And so almost never does she suggest something that I don't think is a good idea. Occasionally she'll suggest something and I'll do it, and then we'll decide to go back to the way it was. But I don't know. Maybe I'm too old to be defensive about my ideas. If there was really something huge, I would probably push back about it. But I don't know. I like to let smart people help.
That's
You were saying that you have been a stay-at-home mom for most of your the last 26 years. Most of Fabled is run by mothers. What did you do before you wrote? I mean, was this a dream of yours that you always had? And I kind of love the idea that so many of your characters are like a second chance. You kind of have maybe a second chance, middle age, being a New York Times bestselling author.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, my career right now is my Ethan. I mean, this is the thing that I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be a writer when I was like a child, and I was an English major, and I was going to graduate from college and write a book. I mean, that was like there were no other choices. And I didn't have a lot of financial training because I didn't understand that someone wasn't going to hire me to do that, and that I wouldn't have any food or shelter while I was trying to write a book. So my friends were moving to New York City. I decided I wanted to do that too, and I got a job in banking. And I worked in banking for a couple of years and kind of gave up on writing because I didn't have any time, and I realized that that was like a ridiculous dream. And I went to business school and I got an MBA, came out, I went back to work in banking. It's a terrible banker. And by the time I had my first child, no, actually, by the time I was pregnant with my first child, I quit. And I was at home with 3 kids. And I didn't write my first book until I was 37.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I was like being a full-time stay-at-home mom until I was 37. And then I was still like staying at home, but I was also writing.
right. That's so great.
Yeah, amazing. It's just so, and I wrote Nora Goes Off Script when I was 50. Like, it's just such a, it's just like, wow, you could still do a thing when you're 50. Yeah. It's nice. Now my husband's at home and he does everything.
That's great. That's the goal.
Yeah, right.
For sure. Well,
No.
thank you so much, Annabelle. If there's any questions I missed and you want to furiously put them in the chat so Annabelle can answer them, I will definitely get to it. But thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, I loved it so much. Thank
It's
you. For having-
champagne summer. I love that.
Yes.
Quote.
Cheers
That
to a champagne summer for all of us.
was- Yes.
And may the champagne be really cold because it's really hot in New York.
Yes. Same here for sure.
Yeah.
If you don't mind sticking around for a little bit, we are going to introduce our next book. And Elizabeth, I'm going to put it in the chat so you can sign up, and Elizabeth's going to introduce it for us.
All right, so our August book is God of the Woods by Liz Moore, and it's one of my favorite books of the year. Don't worry, it has a serial killer in it, so we're balancing out romance, and then we've got a serial killer. There's a lot going on. It takes place at a summer camp, and Liz Moore is just really one of my favorite authors, and she just also continues to get better and better. So we're very excited to have her join us August the 13th, and please make plans that we can order the book from us and then join us then. So, and again, Annabelle, so just wish you the best, and we are cheering you hard in Fable. We sell your books like crazy, so thank you for that too.
Thank you. I can't wait to meet you all in person.
Oh, we'd love it.
For sure.
Absolutely love it. All
Thanks,
right.
guys, so much for joining us. We'll see you
Thanks
next
for
time.
coming.
Good luck with your move.
Yes.
Send help.
Okay.
See the boxes.
Oh, man. All right. Good night.
All right.
Bye,
good
guys.